And hello, everyone. Welcome to the WARPburg Infusion Entertainment Review. It's time for episode number 52. I'm your host, Thomas, aka MrWartburg. Alongside me, as always, is my co host, Patrick, aka Mr. Fusion.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. Hope you are enjoying all of your content this fall, as we're in fall season, right? We're
Yeah,
in fall.
it's
Yeah,
like since our last recording, or I should say the
yeah,
last two recordings plus this one, it's fall time. It's
yep.
finally starting to feel like it up here. Last time we recorded, we were still in the like hitting up in the high 70s, lower 80s. Now it's 50s, right? Like fall is officially here in Iowa.
Okay, we get like a week of fall here in Texas. It's like you get like 3 or 4 days, and then it's wintertime. So we kind of we tempted fate a little bit earlier this week, but we're back to kind of 90-degree weather. But at some point, it'll be in the 40s. Just that's what happens here. We don't get much of a buffer period. Well, I would love to have it. At some point, I'd love to go to Vermont and see fall foliage. That's a goal of mine. Just because it'd be kind of cool to see. We go from bright sunny hot to like cold and
For
wet
real though,
and
next year, this time, Minneapolis, number
yeah.
one, you go to the biggest rent fair in the world.
Okay.
They get like 300,000 visitors per season, which is like way bigger than the second one. And then, or you could do like very late August to do their state fair, which is like the best state fair in the country. And Iowa State Fair is no joke, right? Minnesota State Fair is like, it's the best version of a state fair. Texas's is really
Actually,
good.
yeah.
Minnesota's is like, holy
Well,
shit,
hold
they
on.
go
You
fucking
just
nuts.
you just said you just said Iowa State Fair is no joke, but it was a joke in Deadpool.
Oh, that's true. It was the butt of a joke, but it actually is a fun time. Anyway, we're not here to talk
Okay.
about state fairs, but I would say, plus you could get
Funnel cake, dude.
you could get.
Funnel
Oh,
cake, man.
actually, it's like if the Texans are in town, you could go see a Minnesota Texans game because I think they play them next year, or they
Probably.
definitely are going to at some point, something like that. And then I could come up, we can hang out with noobs, and do a whole lot of food. Just saying,
Okay. Yeah.
because he made me want pickle wraps again today. I love pickle wraps.
I'll
You ever
have I'll
had them?
have to remember. No, I've never had pickle
So
wraps. No.
essentially, you take a dill, just like a whole
Mhm.
dill. Then you take like prosciutto or it's like really thin sliced beef, slather it with
Okay.
cream cheese, wrap it
O-
around the pickle,
Okay.
cut the pickle into bite-sized saucers. Then you got a pickle wrap.
You had me with prosciutto, man.
So you
What
got
can I
that kind of like
say?
saltiness of the meat,
Yeah.
the sweetness of the cream cheese, and the acidity of the pickle bite, plus its crunch. It's the perfect bite. Like
You know,
there's fantastic appetizer.
there's many things we can ridicule the Italian culture for giving us, but giving us sliced pork meat is like
It's on another level, man.
it's
It's
just like
amazing.
prosciutto, capicola, salami, like pepperoni. Like these guys knew what they were doing with their sliced meats, right?
I
Like,
promise you,
uh,
everyone, this isn't a food podcast. We're here to talk
yeah,
about nerd shit, though.
yeah. Hey, but man, you know what? Good food goes hand in hand when you're like you're at a place like the Alamo Draft House and you want to get a good burger while you're watching a movie, like I did on Monday. Like it's good. Hey, man, or you're at home and you barbecue like we did when we were watching some football. Like food goes hand in hand with entertainment, man. What can I say?
Like, yeah.
Good food.
So if you want that Midwest sushi,
Oh,
yeah, that's
all
it.
right.
Got to go with pickle wraps. All
Yeah,
right.
pickle wrap.
This week on tap, speaking of nerdy shit, we're going to be talking about She-Hulk's penultimate episode, plus, of course, the return of everybody's favorite Catholic, Matt Murdock, House of the Dragon, the 7th episode, Andor's slow burn spy drama, Rings of Power, and I'm going to gush a little bit more about Lower Decks because, my God, that show is amazing.
Yep.
So, Fusion, where do you want to start tonight?
Man, I do want to say this. Like we had a conversation last week, and we talked about this before we started recording. You got on me about Undiscovered Country, about Star Trek Undiscovered
I
Country.
did. Rightly
So
so, I will add.
so I decided since I got the freshly minted 4K Ultra box set of the Motion Picture Group collection, I started off this evening with the motion picture, and God, like, yeah, it's very dated. 1979, but I will tell you, for having a low budget, like they ended up with spending like 44 million in 1979, I believe, 78 when they filmed it. It's not that bad. CGI is dated, of course. Anything from any sci-fi from back then was dated, but I will tell you this: like, it was refreshing in that there could have been so much more. You told me, and I totally forgot about this. Robert Wise did mention when it came out in theaters, what essentially is a theatrical cut was his first draft of the film, and there is a director's cut out there. I still haven't caught that yet. I've never watched the director's cut. Gotta watch that. So I have my box set. I'm gonna go have to buy the director's cut or see if there's an on-demand version of it because I want to see the difference of the two.
Fair enough. Now, I
But
will say,
yeah,
in to his credit, that was one of the first times any TV show had really done the leap to like major motion picture, 2 hour national release, all the screens kind of movie
Yeah,
of that era. Like it's not uncommon now, especially like with like communities getting their movie, that they're gonna have on Peacock.
6
Like
seasons in a
Psych's
movie.
got
Yeah,
like 3 movies now. You know,
yep,
none of them, of course, got theatrical releases, but it's a different kind of model, of course, with streaming. But that was one of the first times that ever happened, and it was a dead franchise too. Like it was off the air for like 10 years when they did the movie, which is
yep,
absolutely nuts. Which just speaks to how popular in fandom that became, and it not just stayed popular, but it got more popular off the air.
yep.
And that's the power of Star Trek right there. Is that it literally doesn't die, even if it's off the air.
And here we are, what, 40 plus years later,
50 plus.
and well, I'm talking about from the motion
Oh, from the
picture,
motion picture, yes.
from the revival, because
Yeah,
for
it's like
me,
43
the
years.
yeah, the original series was a capsule in time, 3 seasons, and they were done. A decade later is what to me, between that in that decade is where the Star Trek fandom, the pop culture, the cult following, and all that developed. But to me, I think it kicked it into a new gear when it hit the
Hmm.
big screen. That's when like the conventions like blew up, right? So, and of course I wasn't even born yet. Well, 79. So I was a year old when the motion picture came out. But man, it's just crazy to think that here we are 42 plus, 42 years later, and Star Trek is better than, like, the IP is better than ever.
Hmm.
Like, it's just, seriously, we're talking about the Kelvin verse, that they're going to possibly get their fourth film, Lower Decks,
Strange New
Strange New
Worlds is.
World, like
Let me
Picard.
plug you there because you're gonna have to get Paramount Plus for the director's cut.
Okay,
Strange
okay.
New Worlds, binge it in a weekend. Oh my god, it might be the best one like singular season ever of a Star Trek show. You will absolutely love it, especially coming off the TOS era because it fits so perfectly with that.
Yep.
And Lower Decks. Lower Decks, if you especially once you go through the movies, start Lower Decks, they have some of the deepest fucking cuts. There's one episode of Deep Space Nine where like people they get trapped in like a game. They bring those aliens back and have one of the ensigns scream at them to stop getting people stuck in games. Like they go so deep that it's legitimately impressive. Like, and they just went back to Deep Space Nine in the show. They brought back several of the main cast. Nina, not a visitor. I can't remember how to say her first name, but Kira. They brought Quark back. They had a Morn cameo, right? Like they fucking went for it, and that's what I love about Lower Decks. Is it took a little
Yeah.
bit to find its footing, but man, they just go for it, and I absolutely love that show. Jack Quaid as Boimler, just perfection. That core 4-person ensign group is just fantastic.
All right. So I'll pay for a month of Paramount, binge everything, and then
Heck
drop it
yeah,
after that.
heck yes, that is
Okay.
definitely worth it.
So, just jumping on Star Trek, watching all the shows. Obviously, we're going to talk about the big one, which is She-Hulk. I do want to talk about Andor a bit as well, but all of that stuff. And then I do want to throw this in just before we start talking about those. Getting the reviews in as we're recording, Werewolf by Night, the Halloween special on Disney Plus.
Mhm.
Apparently, the reviews are through the roof on Werewolf by Night, which is low key one of those favorite non-mainstream comics I read with my cousin in the 80s from Marvel. Like, he got onto it when we were at the comic book shop, and we both kind of liked it. And I wasn't a huge fan, but I thought it was kind of cool. Like the story of how they tell the werewolf story. But like, that's something I got to watch. So yeah, we've got tons of stuff to talk about, man. And I'm so excited about like what we've seen. And there's just so much I want to talk about with She-Hulk, because there's a lot to praise about, but there's some things I need to unpack that I'm a little concerned about, that maybe you can kind of help me get my thoughts together on these things, because I do have some concerns going forward with it as well. But yeah, just so much to talk about, but still squeezing in that when I have some time, I'm rewatching season 4 of Stranger Things. Holy crap, man.
What a great
Such a
season.
God, from start to finish, it's a grind, but it's such a good, like, I'm watching one episode a day just because of how long the episodes are. But man, in House of Dragons, really good show. Rings of Power, I'll be honest with you, I'm a couple episodes
Oh,
behind.
dude, and then the
And
best
everyone,
episodes of the season.
I know. I saw Chris's comment, so I know it's on my list to knock out while I'm off for the next few days. So yeah, but yeah, man, just that's really what I've been doing, catching everything, and there's just so much to unwrap and talk about right now.
I know. Like, speaking of all of that, I also started rereading the Lord of the Rings, like the original trilogy.
Yeah.
I never actually owned the original trilogy in its entirety, because I always rented it from the library when I was growing up. Because they had like a 1973 version that had all the fold out maps and stuff, and it was the hardcover. It was a nice set. So I just read that over and over again. So this is my first time reading it, like now that I own it myself. And I got through the forward and most of chapter one before I had to call it a night yesterday. So I'm excited to dive into that again this weekend. Because man, even just reading Tolkien's forward is like, God, this fucking nerdy ass shit, and I love it.
But
Like,
the forward itself, his forward is like a book in itself,
yeah, it's
man. It's
so dense with
yeah,
like, hey, this person wrote a bunch of books in the universe, and here's why they're known and well known for it. Like, what? It's just fucking bonkers, man. Like, how did you think after so many iterations and the letter from the editor of like, yeah, we've tried to edit this thing like 40 times.
yeah,
Like, and we
yeah,
keep fucking up and we keep making errors, and he had to keep going back and fixing shit. I was like, Jesus, what a saga just printing the books went through. Once they were
yep,
like done, the saga of like getting them made and like canonized as like this is the right version is kind of crazy for how popular they are. You'd think at some point they would have settled on this is the edition. But it took them about 60 years,
yeah.
which is crazy. All right, so we've talked enough. Let's dive right into the big one of the day. Let's talk She-Hulk, their penultimate episode. What was the episode title this week? I should have written that down.
Oh, you're gonna have to
But
make
of
me pull it up.
course, as most everybody knows, this is going to be the episode where Daredevil comes back and is officially canonized as part of the MCU, not just as Matt Murdock, but as his alter ego, Daredevil. Goat Fusion's looking it up. Does he have the title?
Ribbit and rip it.
That's what it was. It was the catchphrase. Which,
Yep.
by the way, didn't expect Frogman to be in this episode that much. I knew he'd be in the show at some point, but not have an entire episode about him.
Yeah.
That I was not expecting. But there's a
Well,
lot about this show I was not expecting.
the episode is about him, but he didn't dominate the
No,
episode, which
yeah,
is
he's
cool.
just the catalyst for things.
Yep. 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 A plus, man, this episode. A plus. Like, I do have concerns I'll talk about in a minute, but like for me, She-Hulk has been probably one of the best Marvel shows to date. And I hate to I thought about, do I really want to like do I really want to put it in a box, put wrapping paper in a bow like I'm doing talking about it, because then it sounds like every time a new show comes out it's great, because I enjoyed Miss Marvel. I'm not saying Miss Marvel was like one of the best shows, but Miss Marvel was fun for what it was. That being said, Loki is number one for me, obviously, right? She-Hulk is going to be getting, it's very close to locking number two at this point, just because there's so much I love about this show. Um, the fact that they're poking at a section of social media every week, and just seeing how the producer and the writers of the show are like, they're continuing the joke on social media with these haters, like these people that are so angry about it. I all that aside, we've had the social commentary, but like they obviously thought this through with, like, from start to finish, what the repercussions of this show was going to be outside into the public, out in the real world, the reception to it and all that stuff. So I kudos to them for taking it and running with it. But man, Tatiana, is it Tizlani? I forget how you pronounce her last name. Tizlani?
I think it was, isn't it Maslany?
Maslani. Tatiana Maslani. She's fantastic. God, I miss Charlie Cox, man.
Dude, when he shows up, you're like, it's all better now. Like, he's
Oh,
back.
not only, of course, we go with the thing, the whole sexualization of She-Hulk or whatever, like the jokes with her. Here's the reality: if you've read the Dan Slott comic, it's very on point with her personality. Like, she's very carefree with her life, and good for her, right? That's what they do here. But man, I don't know about you, but like there was some serious chemistry between Tatiana and Charlie, like
Heck
through
yeah.
the entire, like they were just oozing charisma amongst them. My only concern, it's not a complaint, Warburg, it's a concern. We Matt Murdock slash Daredevil, obviously the character is it's a lighter hearted version because of the show he's in for this episode. I get that, but I'm a little concerned. Like, is Marvel going to like like the way that his character was adapted to the show, and they're going to make a PG version of Daredevil? Because it won't work if they're bringing back
Well, they
everybody.
have said it's not going to be that. They said they're not going to be forced to tone down anything.
Which I'm glad that they've said that, but I'll I'll believe it when I see it, honestly, because I think that he was so good in kind of being self aware in this episode, just really fucking good at it. And I'm thinking like, okay, maybe they're gonna, but we'll see what happens with Echo. If it's toned down with Echo next year, then I'll be fine with that. I just don't want them to really kind of just rip and gut that aspect of the darker aspect of the TV show, because that's what I really loved about the Netflix show, was how dark and gritty it was, and the feeling of hopelessness, the violence, and everything. Like, it fit the darker Marvel Knights edition of Daredevil in the '90s and early 2000s. So outside of that, I loved how self-aware he was, though. I enjoyed the chemistry, the comedy that he had, and the back and forth that they had through the episode. It was cool to see the red and yellow. They're also so very self-aware about that. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed it, man. I really did. It's mostly just concerned going forward, and it's not like that hater mentality of like, oh my god, they're gonna ruin it, because it's not gonna get ruined for me. It's just I Daredevil,
I
the
mean,
Netflix show is
seasons 1 and 3 are fucking almost
yeah,
10 out of 10 perfect.
yeah, and I want to see another one of those type of seasons out of Daredevil.
Because I mean, those 2 seasons, that was prestige television. I don't think
Yep,
anything Disney Plus has done reaches that mark. I think Loki maybe gets the closest in terms of like scope
yep,
and what they were going for, like that kind of like this is like appointment viewing. WandaVision started that way because it was the first time and it was their first MCU show, so of course everyone was like hyper focused on it. But I think
sure.
Loki was the closest they got to that in terms of like hitting that watermark. They didn't quite stick that landing, but I think that's the closest they got. Daredevil seasons 1 and 3, that's the mark for like prestige comic book content. Plus
Well,
HBO's Watchmen.
and it's not just comic book; it's the artistry of cinema that you
Yeah,
get from
like
one and
that
three.
level of like
Like,
matching that
yeah,
level of like film and TV making with the comic book worlds. Yeah, I would put those 2 seasons of Daredevil and then HBO's Watchmen. Like that is the mark of like, yep, that you go if you're gonna go for that level, don't miss.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
But man, it was fun to see the chemistry that they have. Very interested to see where we're going because of the way this episode ended. It's like, uh-oh. My
And
only
it's
other
I didn't realize it was already the penultimate until she
yeah,
said it in the episode.
in
I'm
the
like,
episode,
oh
yeah.
shit, we're already there. Damn, that was fast.
Yeah, the way she described it about going to the gala, like all that, was like, oh wait, it's in the penultimate. Oh wait, yeah, we only have one episode left, guys. I guess we're doing it, and then we flash over to the event, which is really cool because it's that that Deadpool approach, that metal approach to comedy, but it's not overbearing, it's not running you down, and it's not as comedic as Ryan, because Ryan Reynolds is fucking funny with it. He's got that comedic timing to where it works with him. I think if you did it too much with her, which you don't, it would wear down fast, and it doesn't here. But
Well, that
I'm
and in
very
the lore, he's at like everyone
yeah.
thinks he's
Uh,
crazy.
and we didn't talk about it last week because we weren't here. We didn't record last week, but the retreat episode with
That was quite good too.
Man Bull, and that was hilarious. Yeah, I really like this show because we're using a lot of the D characters of Marvel. Like, we're using them, we're making them entertaining, but we're putting them out there now, and it's like, okay, so at some point they could show up again somewhere else. Really like it, man. I really enjoy this show. I really, really do.
Yeah, I agree. Like they're kind of stealthily like really fleshing out the MCU
Yep.
in different ways. Like we got
Yep.
more stuff with some of the magic stuff. We got their legal side, we got their super side. We got their just like general man on the street kind of side of like, what do people think about all this random superhero stuff, like what is it to live in that world? Like we're getting a little bit of that perspective too from multiple different characters. And that's something that's really cool about this show is how consistent they've been. Most of the other shows, and of course they have yet to stick the landing all the way because we haven't seen the finale.
Yeah.
Certainly feels like they're going to nail it all the way through. I don't think sans maybe Hawkeye, any show has really stuck their landing. And Hawkeye had a pretty good finale.
Yeah.
For me, it was a little cheesy on the nose with the whole whistling to Yelena thing. That was a little like, oh man, you really needed to have watched Black Widow to get this show. Like, otherwise you'd be entirely fucking lost.
Yeah.
This TV show, She-Hulk, doesn't have that crutch right now. And maybe it helps that Hulk can't have their own movies because of Universal. You know, like the story's been told through enough of the bigger movies with Hulk, and now we're into the She-Hulk thing where she can just stand on her own altogether without being tied to any other prior property. Which, I think that that's a strength of her character in the MCU going forward into it. And I'm hoping what we get in the finale is as good as the run up we've had, because that's leading up to something really fun. And I can't wait to
Obviously,
see it.
obviously, do you have theories on what we're gonna do with who this Hulk King
Ah,
is?
yeah, I don't know. Like, I honestly don't think it's going to be anybody big. Now that I think about it more, I think the blood will be the stinger. Like,
Okay.
that's going to be the lead into Captain America 4, because we know the leader's the bad guy there.
Yep.
And I don't think it's a bad guy. I don't think it's a guy. I think it's her going up against I think the villain's going to be the perception of her and her fighting that in the finale, and maybe
Okay.
not winning. Maybe that's where they end it with season 2, is everybody really thinks she is the monster that her cousin was before he, kind of fixed himself.
That's very that'd be a very tough thing to do, man, going into season 2 if they do a season 2. Would be like she's completely ostracized when we only had one season of her being an attorney, you know?
Or maybe it's not even like we leave it there, but more like she realizes maybe in the beginning that Bruce wasn't entirely wrong. About how she needs to like really know how to control herself. Because I mean, picking up a dude and basically trying to rip his head off, not exactly controlling yourself.
Yeah.
Understandably so, though. Like doing
Well,
what they did.
yeah. I mean, going I mean, they've touched on just the struggle of women in society, period.
I think they're
But then
gonna
to
circle
go,
back to that theme for the
yeah.
finale, and like
But it
that's
was
gonna be the core part of it.
it was very brave of him to go the revenge porn route, like that whole
Yeah,
thing, right? It
that
was
was
just like,
like unsettling.
whoa. Like just watching that, you're just like, wow, like it's a comedy show, but you're like, every comedy show has very serious moments when they're trying to do a little bit of a commentary on something to develop the character, right? And you're just like, whoa, you're kind of taken aback because you're like, yeah, this is really kind of fucked up. But when you think about it, it's like, yeah, but we all have that person in our life that she's experienced something very close to that. And you're just like, okay, all right. And and being a guy, both of us being guys, it's like we can try to understand and sympathize, but we can't empathize that, because we're not in those shoes. So, but for me, I think it's probably going to end up. I think Todd's going to end up being centered around that, at some
Oh
point.
shit! I didn't even remember that he's been circling around. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
bet he's gonna probably be involved because now he's been in
Yeah.
3 episodes.
Yep, and then
Yeah.
this episode, he gets rejected majorly in public, so I'm thinking that, it centers around them, but it obviously, like you're saying, I was like, "Oh, very early on, what if it's a leader?" But then when we find out he's going to be the central piece on the villain side for Captain America 4, you're like, "Yeah, it makes no sense to reintroduce him here,"
No,
because
no, this isn't his
with
intro. If anything,
no.
it's a post-credits scene, and like a reveal, and then lead into Captain America 4, much like kind of like the Scepter was, you know, with Age of Ultron
Yeah.
and the
So
Stinger from Winter Soldier.
I think maybe She-Hulk does decide to get out of LA and maybe move to New York for season 2. That way she can be closer to Bruce to work on this, like, and then we take her attorney practice. She goes on her own on the road, maybe. I don't know.
Or hey, she
It's
starts working with Daredevil. I mean, that'd
That
be
would
pretty
be
dope.
interesting. That would be interesting to me, but then I think, yeah, well, you could definitely have her do a cameo on the Daredevil show at some
Oh
point, and
yeah,
it'd be a little, she doesn't have to be super goofy or funny, or the show doesn't have to completely break character, but she can make
I
an
want her starting her
appearance or a
own
cameo.
practice, and one of her go-tos for contacts is Jessica Jones.
There you go. So, I mean, there's obviously at the end of this episode, there are repercussions to what she did in public, So now it's going to affect the whole, I'm going to say, sunshine and rainbows approach to her being this attorney, this pop culture sensation and all that. Or there may be a complete swerve that we don't know about. Like you said, they still haven't stuck the landing yet, so we have to wait to see next week. But I'm very interested to see where we go from here. But man, it's been fun. It's been very eye-opening in a lot of ways to see like the story itself play out and this commentary that we've seen, but also to see the response to it, online, and people finding reasons to dislike the show. And it's like everything that you list on your videos that you hate about it are things that are exactly touched upon in the comics, which is like it's a reflection of the comic. So it's like you obviously don't know anything about the comic, and or else so obviously Jessica Gao did a great job of making sure that it blends in well from the IP, the original publication story.
It
So
very much so
yeah,
fits that
yeah,
era of where they're pulling from, at least in terms of tone and like messaging, and of course updated to now what we're going through in 2022. But
yeah,
like it's for me, it really seems like they knew exactly what they wanted to do the entire time. Which, to point back to a couple other shows, and not entirely all their fault because COVID like fucked half of them during
yeah,
production. But
yeah,
like it felt like they just kind of like changed gears midway in a few of them in terms of what they were going for. This one feels tonally consistent throughout the entirety so far, and I'm very hyped to see the finale. Should be a fun Thursday.
yeah. Definitely, definitely.
All right, so what do you want to talk any more about this? You want to talk about the fucking Daredevil reveal? Because oh, it was so good.
Let's go. Let's go with the
It was
Daredevil review, man.
so good. Like initially, I thought he was going to show up like many people in Hawkeye.
Yep.
I thought we were going to get that, last second reveal. You pan up the building, whatever, and oh, there's Daredevil in the suit, and you get the intro music. And I was
Yep.
half right because we got the intro music. You got that slow pan up from the trailer, but that's not
Yep.
when we got the music. No, that's why I thought we were going to get it. We get it with a joke, which is perfect for this show. With the She-Hulk Jen asks him like, "Who are you?" Right? Because she's given the mask back at this point, so he's got it back on, and he's like, "I'm Daredevil," as the music kicks up, and she just
Yeah.
shrugs like, "Who the fuck is Daredevil?" Which is true because like Daredevil would be in the lore. He hasn't done anything big yet, but like he'd be a known character in his part of the world, and that's about it. Because
Yeah.
he's not exactly out here stopping somebody blowing up the New York Empire State Building. Like he's not on Spider-Man's level. He's a pure street level hero right now. But now we're at the point where he's going to start to probably do bigger things as he's interacting with more of the MCU heroes because now he's officially canon and he can.
Yeah.
But man, what an like that first fight sequence they had, that was pretty cool.
Yes, it was.
I
It
won't
was.
lie, that put a big smile on my face. That entire sequence, and then sequence 2 when they're taking down, we get a hallway fight. Are you kidding me? That was incredible, and it looked good too. Like the him taking down those 5 goons was like, oh dude, this feels like a slightly more stylized version of what we got on Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like holy shit, that looked good when he's fucking just beats down that dude, and the quick cut back to him, and he whips out the stick, and it comes back to him. I gift that moment on my recording was like, that looked so good that I can't wait to see what they do with the character in his own show. Born Again
Yeah.
cannot come soon enough.
18 episodes.
Gonna,
18 episodes.
gonna be
Like
incredible.
we're getting like two seasons worth of Daredevil all in one, man. You're right. The one thing I didn't realize is that it doesn't take away from the Netflix show. I give the Netflix show even more props because they did practical fighting effects, if that makes sense. Like there was less wire work, obviously, more of traditional martial arts fighting, right? And it looked good. Like when you go back and watch that first season, that very first hallway fight, holy fuck, one steady cam to do that whole 7 minute scene, you're just like that there's a lot of, and I was second time I've said this tonight, a lot of artistry going on in there from the director, from the camera work, from Charlie Cox, all of the supporting actors that were fought, got their asses kicked. Like that was art right there. And then this was, hey, we can do a lot of that, but we have the budget now to really do a lot more. And it looked really good, man. It looked really good. And the jokes, like for me, the best part was the actual opening where he walks in to the courtroom, and he's talking about he's just like he has his senses, and people are just like, oh, whatever, dude. Like, okay, all right, whatever. Which where was it? The heartbeat thing was that was after the suit when they were sitting on the car when he was sitting on they were sitting
That
on
was
the
in
rooftop,
between.
right?
It was right before he
Yeah.
goes into
Okay.
when he counts out how many bad guys there are, and she's like, "The fuck did you know that?"
Okay. My favorite thing was how he just was insulted about echolocation because remember that was kind of a thing. That's what they called his power in the comics for a long time was he has this echolocation and he's just kind of like fuck you with your echolocation. I loved
He's like,
that. I
what I
love
yeah, especially where you come from. How they showed it visually in the Netflix show was fucking rad. Where it's like
yeah,
he sees the world on fire, basically.
fire. Yep.
That
Yep.
was that was so cool,
Yep.
and I definitely appreciated like people like poking fun at the weirdness of his character in the show, and of course seeing Charlie Cox's reaction to it was great too because he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. They had some serious chemistry,
They
and
did. They
I'm
did.
curious to see where that's gonna go as he's now going to be in the universe way more consistently.
Yep.
So that's definitely something to keep an eye on,
Yep.
as they
So
say.
we're getting Daredevil in 2024. We're getting Echo next year. Just depends on what's on slate for She-Hulk season 2. Maybe that's a 2024 release. I don't think they'll do because Loki supposed to come out this year?
I think it's next year.
Next year. Okay. So they're going to take a year jump with a lot of the shows. They're going to skip a year, right? That just it makes sense.
Well, that and
Because
they might even be able to have a faster turnaround with this one now because it sounds like they've worked out a lot of the kinks in terms of the actual like work to create the CGI character that is She-Hulk.
yeah.
And of course, they
Well,
got a
we
lot of notes from the internet.
there you go.
Well,
So
especially
we
the
we
background stuff of them wanting to make her smaller, like the execs. I'm like, I mean, it's She-Hulk. What the fuck did you think you were getting into?
yeah.
But that's a different conversation altogether. Um, I'm curious how much they could work around it because it was a fairly small cast in terms of like recurring characters
Yeah.
of like regulars. You would not recurring regular is the word I want to use there. So they might be able to make it even like do a quicker turnaround. But who knows? Because it's not like they didn't go and shoot all around the world. So who knows? Maybe it would be a faster turnaround. They could do it early 2024, 18 months.
And season 2 obviously we can tie in a few other things like new Asgard can make an appearance,
Yeah,
like
because they reference
because
like they have an Asgardian, in was that episode 2, episode
yep.
3, one of the. It was an early episode.
Well, then also the goons that have the
Yeah,
Asgardian
the
construction
Wrecking
tech,
Crew.
the Wrecking Crew. Yep. So there's I mean I think touching on New Asgard still being a part of it. Here's the other big thing we've grossly overlooked this, but we mentioned it in our last episode, the Sokovia Accords that we have an official addressing that it's been repealed.
Yeah.
That's it. We're done. We are done
Now
with the
don't
Soviet.
do Civil War 2.
Yep. We're
Just
done.
don't touch it. Don't do
Yep.
that to Brie Larson. Don't.
No, no. Well, beyond that, in a few years, we're gonna have two Avengers films in the same year, and I think Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars is more than enough
Yeah, you don't need to
amalgamated
introduce any
rosters.
more of that shit. We're
No, you
done with
don't
that.
need
Steve was right.
this.
Everybody shut the fuck up.
Yep. That was funny that when the episode came out yet on Thursday, like seeing the internet say, "So Steve was right." All right, Steve was
Yeah,
right. All
Steve
right,
was
right.
always right.
Yeah.
Except for that one time he didn't tell Tony about a thing. But other
Yep.
than that, he was always right.
Yep. But man, it's been a fun ride. I really hope they do stick the
Do you
landing
think
next
do you
week.
think Bruce is going to come back this in the finale, or is he off? Is that was just set up for his own adventure?
I think he's well. Okay, I think it's gonna be a stinger at the end, a post credit scene. We're gonna get what's next with Bruce, like what's happening with Bruce. I don't think he's gonna be a part of the season finale, unless unless it's tied into her saying, like you said, Bruce, I do need help controlling this. Obviously, I have anger to go through, and we can get a joke from Bruce once again, like we did with Tony. I'm not a psychiatrist. Like I'm not a
Yeah, I'm not
psychiatrist.
that kind of doctor.
I'm not that kind of doctor. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think Bruce is going to be a part of it. But it's funny because you said that because the previous episode she does call him again and say, "Hey, Bruce, you've been gone for a few weeks. What's going on,
Yeah, I
man? Like
love
you've
the
been gone."
call me back, you ding dong.
Yeah. So
That was
it,
peak family phone call conversation
yep,
right there.
yep. Just yeah, we obviously have to talk about what's next with that, but honestly, there's still inner workings with Disney and Universal to really hone out the rights like they did with Sony's to where we could get a World War Hulk movie, which I think once we what's it 2025 is when we get the two Avengers films. Is that
That
right?
sounds right.
Okay, maybe if those close out Phase 6. Maybe 2026, so 4 years from now, we talk about kicking off Phase 7 with World War Hulk and the repercussions of that. Like, I mean, It's possible that they're trying to work on that. I know Ruffalo, he's in his 50s now, but he has said he loves playing Bruce Banner. Like it's a cool thing for him because he's so CGI'd up, he doesn't have to like get into a certain physical shape like Hemsworth and Evans do, you know. So, I'm really happy with this, man. I was we I don't know if how bored you were, but that first trailer, yeah, the CGI had a lot to be desired, but I just thought the story was going to be like, there's going to probably be some problems here with this character. But no, man, they've knocked this out of the park. They really have.
And
It's been
that one
fun.
goes
Yeah.
back, I think, to on the Disney side, they weren't sure how to market it
Yep. That's fair.
because the show itself has been very tonally consistent, but the initial marketing we got of it was like, I don't think focused on the right parts of the show. Like, honestly, they shouldn't have included the Daredevil tease at all.
No, they should never. It should not have been in there. No.
Like, and they didn't need to focus on the training montage because that was literally like 2 minutes, right? Like, and that was a lot of the trailer. Her and Bruce was
Yep.
like, that
Yep.
wasn't the show though. Like, the show is the lawyer show, which I appreciate. That was like literally the first scene we get in the entire show is her saying it's the lawyer show,
Yep.
and they've stuck to that. And I don't think the initial marketing really did, which I think that's a failure not on the actual creators of any of the show.
Yeah.
That goes to the marketing push of it, which I
Which
think
is
could have
more the
used.
studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's the studio that thought they needed to make She-Hulk smaller. So clearly some miscommunication on what they were going for. But that's neither here nor there because the show's still really good.
Yeah. It just goes to show you that when you and because it's a popular thing for people to watch trailer reactions, we always have to remember, as excited as the trailer can make us, that the trailer isn't always the end product.
No.
We both know that.
Yeah,
There have been
sometimes trailers are perfectly on point. They get you the exact level of hype for the right moments in the movie. Like the trailer for John Wick, the first one.
oh yeah, yeah,
Damn near a perfect trailer in terms of what the movie ended up being. It was point for point, just like fucking on it. And it got everyone to want to see that movie because out of nowhere, holy shit, Keanu Reeves kick like as a fucking like gung fu wielding ninja. Let's go. Like that trailer was amazing. But some trailers, like Love and Thunder's trailer was great. Movie not so much.
yeah.
Like sometimes it oversells while the movie underdelivers. You know, and that's just a reality of marketing. Sometimes you can't make those things meet up. So you got to like take everything with a grain of salt, you know. Go and try to go
Yeah.
in with as an even keeled tone as possible.
Well, I think No Way Home was a big one because they really didn't want to expose way too much of what was going to happen
Exactly.
with
And
No
like
Way
with
Home.
the twists at the end, I mean, yeah, that was really good. Like generally Disney's marketing's been really good.
Yeah,
But every now and then you've got some stuff that just kind of tonally misses and I think the She-Hulk, preview stuff was definitely was a bit like not a massive miss. Like it wasn't bad. It still got me interested in the show, but yeah, it really when I think back to it, I'm like, man, the show is way different than I thought it'd be. And that seems to be a very common refrain. A lot of reviewers that I've followed who are like, yeah, it's was not what we expected. Not entirely at least, but I'm quite enjoying it. So should
yeah.
we move on to another show?
Let's do that. Let's go on. What's next?
So what do you want to talk? You want to talk stick Disney and talk Andor, or do you want to move on to fantasy and go House of the Dragon?
Let's go House of the Dragon here.
All
I want to
right,
talk a
we'll
little bit
we'll
about
make this a Disney sandwich. We'll go House of the Dragon in the middle.
yeah. What are your thoughts on the last couple episodes? Because I feel for me, I'll just say this briefly. I think I'm getting worn a little thin with the time jump here. So how
Well,
do
I
you
think it
feel?
comes back to now that they've stopped doing the time jumps, you can settle in again. Another show, like I talk about this a lot, like Young Justice did time jumps a lot. Like they've jumped 12 years in 4 seasons,
Okay.
and it's like it takes you out of the arcs, right? Like you feel like you're missing moments and key things that you would have seen if it had been told entirely chronologically. But at the same time, you know it can't be because they're not going to be on the air for 10 years, right? Like you're not going to
Yeah.
spend 10 years in the lead up to a civil war. You want to get to the civil war,
Yep.
right? So I think they've managed to kind of thread that needle, especially because the casting has been on point at every level. At the various, the kids, the teens, the adults versions of the characters, and they make up work on the characters that were already, cast as the oldest version of themselves. and
Yeah.
aged up via makeup and effects. That's all been fantastic. I am a bit surprised at some of the changes they made to the actual like what happened in the Dance of the Dragons book. I think that was the name of it, right? Or was it Fire and Blood? What was the name?
I think it's Fire and Blood,
Fire
right?
and Blood. But like the saga is the Dance of the Dragons. That's
Dance
the
of the
Civil
Dragons.
War.
Yeah.
That's like the name of the whole era. I'm surprised by some of the changes. I think they've decided to make one side definitively the bad guy, one side the good guy. That, of course, being Queen or soon to be Queen Rhaenyra.
Yep.
In the books, spoilers, Laenor dies. Straight up, he's dead. They don't fake his death, right? Like that, and showing the audience that right away tells me they want us to think they want us to think she's the good guy, and then they're going to serve us later, or they are setting her up to be the definitive good side versus the bad side. And of course, knowing where this all ends, it's going to end in, of course, tragedy and death for everybody
Yep.
because it's Game of Thrones. But
Yep.
they didn't need to do that because I mean, TV shows have come out very recently, like like things like Breaking Bad, where you're always rooting for bad guys. You know, like you don't need to have a good to make a compelling story. But when it comes to different like definitive side things, it can't help what you're trying to do. You know, create that rooting interest. So, how familiar are you with the lore?
I've not deep into it, man. I'll be honest with you. I picked up Fire and Blood a long time ago and just read through a little bit. You know, I didn't go through I'm not as boned up as I was with the first book, Game of Thrones, and the subsequent books. So I I can follow along, but I'm more interested in just the fact that I'm a little curious what they're going to do with Allison because I I I know that they're trying to pivot her at this point to be the bad person, right? And then you're going to have a reveal at some point, but I don't trying to think of the best word to put this. I don't think it's being executed right at this point, but we still have a couple episodes left, so
Because she's really the worst.
um, yeah.
She's the
I know.
worst.
At this point,
Her
yeah,
and Sir
but
Kristen are the worst.
yeah.
Like, dude, it's been 10 years. And you were going to maim
So
one of her kids because you felt scorned 10 years
s-
ago?
10 years ago. Here's the thing though is
The
that
fuck?
uh, obviously Rhaenyra and Daemon, that quasi relationship that we had before the time jump, um maybe it's me, but I think when Amelia Carey was playing the character, I felt like there wasn't that nastiness. Like there was no foreshadowing of that nastiness, right? We're kind of just 10 years later we jump right into that. And I want to know like what's the motivation for that? Is it jealousy? Is it vengeance? Like what do and it may be vengeance because of what happened with her dad, right? Obviously, but we really don't get into a whole lot of that.
Yeah,
And
like
it's
one of
just
the theories was that he was like kind of like in love with Rhaenyra.
yeah.
Because I could
That's
definitely see how that was coded in the pilot. Like that
well,
they
yeah,
that they were maybe both
yes.
feeling, those kind of things for each other
I
without ever
think it was
actually,
yeah.
going for it.
There were a couple scenes in the pilot where you're kind of like, okay, she's very touchy feely with Rhaenyra. So my feeling was, okay, maybe that's what my first thought was. Okay, obviously we're changing a little bit of the tone from the book for this, right? Okay, that's fine. Uh, it makes sense. Like a lot, we're not gonna do a
And the
word. We're
book's
not gonna
a
do blow.
unreliable narrator
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
situation.
we're not going to go blow for blow because it just doesn't work that way, right? From book and from print, what print, and then it always has to change a little bit. But I noticed that as well. But for my thought was Allison was more of she felt that more than Rhaenyra did, right? Rhaenyra was more of directed towards the world. Her whether it be her emotion or interest or sexual interest, it was like outward projecting to outside of those castle walls. Whereas Allison was more of this is what I have, this is what I want. And then when she found out that what happened with her and Damon, that really broke her spirit. But we don't really talk about that. So maybe there is a confrontation at some point that talks about that, right? Maybe, I don't know. But at this point, I feel like whatever their relationship and their rift is, we really haven't jumped on. It's more of, let's talk about the two sides warring with each other versus what is really going on. What is at the root of that? And maybe that's just like the psychologist and the deep psychologist in me that wants to know. But I just think that if we had a little more definition of what where that rift developed, like what caused that rift, um, I think I'd feel a little more bought into Alicent, and I'm not really bought into her right now. Not really, no.
Other than, okay, well, she just tried to kill someone.
Yeah, well, no, yeah,
So
but
fuck
then
her.
when it comes to Game of Thrones, that there's always
Yeah,
that happens with,
like the how did we get there moment with
yeah,
her specifically
yeah,
is seems to be
I think,
missing as of yet.
yeah, I think, yeah, that's right, yeah. I'm trying to think of her name. The character Sophie Turner played, the Stark character,
Sansa.
Sansa. So we got pretty much a line. Like, not only did we get to see it take place where that rift for her came in from, being part of the North, but we also got to see, like, she reminded us through every process of the growth of her character was, this is why I feel the way I feel. This is why I have, I'm not a big fan of the Targaryens, of so many things for her, right?
Like why she
And then
wants
we
the
had,
North to stand on itself.
yeah, stay standing some, but we also we still haven't really jumped into the Starks' involvement, and we
Well,
have
they
to at
really
some
don't
point,
until
right?
the war actually starts.
That's true. That's true. But I think I would think there'd be some teasing of it, just because of,
Well, there's still
fan
3
service.
episodes to go.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, Alicent is probably for me the biggest problem I'm having. I think we need a little bit more deep diving into that. She's more of the action character, like everything. She's the character where all of the action and the drama flows through. I need more development on what's driving her outside of just protecting her kids and the throne itself, because it didn't start that way. It didn't start that way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. I hear you there.
still great show, man. It's still a
I'm
great
still
show.
very much enjoying it. The dragons, it all looks really good. Did you have a problem with how dark the last episode was? I didn't.
Mm,
But
I didn't.
I turned my lights off. I watched it on a nice TV. Like
Yep.
that's not most people's viewing experience. I recognize that. But
Yep.
like it wasn't the best way I've ever seen like nighttime stuff shot or for shown. But not the worst either.
No, no, I had no problem with it. Just like you, and I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but I have a good TV that has calibrated blacks. I calibrated the color, so it's not a problem. Like, I thought it was fine, and in fact, I just thought that scene just kind of just pushed through really quick for me, and to see people on the internet really like get pissed about that again, I'm like, I think there's more PTSD from, the
And to
night,
be fair, it was the same
a long
director,
night. Yeah, I know, and maybe that was just him kind of like, to the
which was
fans,
stupid
but
from HBO's part to not be on that.
yeah.
I don't know. I certainly can see why people would be like upset that they couldn't see it because it was unnecessarily dark.
Yeah.
Like there have been a number of ways where they've like Nope was a recent one. Nope
Mhm.
was day for night shot. Like it was shot in the middle of the day and it just made it look like night.
Yep.
You can do that and it still looks real good. They clearly didn't do that here. So like it was just not, and it was like really color washed, because it's dusk, and colors do that, but they don't do it quite as real life colors don't do that, do
No,
they? I
no,
I don't I don't ever remember dusk being that monotone,
no.
right? Like I've taken numerous walks out, so, middle of nowhere, dusk time in Iowa.
And
Colors
it's
don't
not
do that.
gray. It's not
That's
grayed
not
out,
how it
yeah.
works.
No. And maybe, like, you're right, the HBO really probably should have jumped on that before they let him direct that episode, you know? Given given the criticism that came from, the
Yeah,
last
what
season of Game
what
of
a
Thrones.
massive just letdown that episode was.
Yeah,
That seems like a not great choice.
yeah.
But
Now
that's just us fans
that
making a judgment idea.
that was worse, but I also understand why they made it the way they did in that episode of
Yeah,
Game of
like
Thrones, is because the
both
fear.
episodes, I see the thematic point that they're wanting to tell with the cinematography. I just
Yep,
don't think it matters if no one can actually fucking see anything.
that's true, that's true.
It that the point only matters so much.
Yeah,
if you can't tell what you're doing in a visual medium. Like
that's
sometimes
very fair.
you just got your head up your ass and you don't see it. And it almost feels like that's what happened here.
Yeah, we got that with Rain Johnson and
Yeah, sometimes you just don't see the forest through the
yeah,
trees, and it feels
uh,
like that's where this particular director was at in terms of what he wanted to do with the camera. But
yeah. I really didn't have a problem with it. Not me. I thought it was. I thought it was just. It was fine. It didn't really. It didn't really create an issue for me. But I can see why people would complain about it. But like I said, man. I overall, this has been a really good first season of this show, and um, the good thing I like about this, it's if you want to, for me, I liken it to Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, in that it's of the same universe, but it is a different show. Like it is a different show. It feels, even though we're in Westeros, it feels different to me. Overall, the working parts of the different kingdoms or the different
and part of that's
regions,
the
and
music
you
too.
know,
Like the music's
yeah.
fantastic, but it's
Oh
it's
yeah,
not the same kind of other than the theme, from for the
yeah.
title,
But
which
obviously
is
they
a
were going to
direct
use that
rip.
theme again.
But
Yeah,
other than that, I mean, it feels like a different time in the universe, which it should. It's a
two
hundred
hundred
some
years
years,
before. Yeah.
before.
Yep.
So it should, and I think they've nailed that successfully.
Yeah.
Plus, like we haven't got the Stark theme because we haven't seen the Starks, and the Stark theme fucking rules. It's
Yes, it
great
does.
theme. Like that is straight up just like fantastic fantasy theme. They nailed it.
Yes.
Um,
So let's talk about Andor, man.
yeah,
I want to know you.
let's move on to something else. Let's move on back to the world of Disney. Let's talk Andor episode 5
Yes.
already because the first 3 dropped all at once. Where are you coming out on Andor? Another slow week, but also it is a slow burn. Like generally speaking, spy dramas, because this is a spy drama. Like this is like this. I would put this in the same genre as The Americans,
Okay.
right? Like it's in that. It's clearly that's the kind of story they're trying to tell. And if Rogue One had been a show, it had been a lot slower than it was as a movie, just because of what they were trying to do. I'm really digging it, man. Like all the like we're getting really into the nitty gritty in terms of the crew's relationship with Cassian, that he's dealing with. We're diving into deeper of the motivations with Mon Mothma and our Imperial guy whose name I don't know. I can't remember his name. Skarsgård's guy, can't remember his name, but he's a great character. I just don't know his name. Like we're getting into his fear about like, is the rebellion gonna die? Is this not gonna work? Like I need it. He feels like there's this need there, and he's just like kind of losing his mind over it a little bit. You kind of get that from his wife, confidant. I don't know their relationship,
Yeah.
but I'm loving that this episode was just all about those relationships and the working up to the big moment, which is going to be coming very soon.
Yep.
Can't wait for it.
Obviously, the heist is going to take place in episode 6. I mean, we ended on
It
the way
feels
over
like it.
there.
Yeah.
We ended on the way over there. So, Skarsgård's character is Luthen Rail. Luthen Rail. I think it's
Okay.
Rail.
All right. I'll
Luthen
take your
Rail.
word for it.
But like, I'm real curious with his role because, okay, I thought I was going a little crazy about this, but so maybe you could help me with this because I'm a little rusty on my timeline from watching the show. We're at the beginnings of the rebellion, right? How far are we in at this point in
I
terms of
mean,
timeline?
we're what are we 4 or 5 years away from Rogue One?
Rogue One, right?
Yeah, because we're at the exact same time as Rebels. Rebels, of
Yes.
course, took over the course of I think 4 years. Plus, there was like it ended like 6 months before Rogue One would have happened in universe. So we're
Mhm.
like 4.5 years away
Okay.
from the actual. I think they even say it's 5 before the Battle of Yavin.
Yes.
So basically 4 and like 10 months
Okay. So this is the
ish
beginnings. This is the beginnings. This is the foundation. This is what we're going through, right?
of the Rebel Alliance. There have
The
been different
Alliance.
rebel groups, like we're gonna
No, no,
see Saw Gerrera and stuff. Yeah,
I'm talking about the Rebel Alliance.
yeah, as we know it.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, well, because we're obviously at some point here in the next couple episodes going to get Sal Guerreras and
Mhm.
his rebel group as well. My only hope is that we don't dive too much into Saul and what led him to his madness. We don't. We could talk about it or have it be a part of Andor's story, casting Andor's story.
I think
I
they've
don't
told
want us.
that. I think they told that even better in Rebels.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I just don't want them to like center too much on it again.
No.
I think this what we're doing here is we're telling a story about Cassian Andor, a man who becomes a part of something big with the Rebel Alliance, which is what I'm happy about. Like it is something that still involves the universe and the Empire, but it doesn't revolve around that too much, right? And it's the inner workings of how we get there. I really am intrigued to see where we go with Mon Mothma, just because of her. Obviously, there's a big rift with her marriage with her husband, and her daughter is not a big fan of her. So we obviously should we get her to where we are in Rogue One. So I'm very in being a part of the Rebel Alliance. So I'm invested in her character, even though there's not a lot of drama with her. I just think it's very interesting to see like someone so pivotal in the Rebel Alliance. She actually has roots outside of that. So obviously something has to pull her away from that completely, right? So um I'm curious about that. Obviously, Skarsgård's character, he's playing a pivotal role here, but I don't think he sees it to the end of this
Oh no,
season.
he's
I
dead.
don't think. Yeah, like something's gonna happen with him, and it may be his partner. She turns on him or something. But um, the rebels that he's working with, the farmers, the last couple episodes, I was a little worried at first, the previous episode, with how slow it was developing, but this episode it moved much faster to where they get resolution. They put their cards on the table, they tell their stories, because we need to know what's motivating them for being to be there. And then Cassian talks about like why he's there. Hey, I was paid, but here it is, guys. I'm putting all my cards out for you so you can trust me. Okay, well, now let's get to the heist. Because I was thinking, I'm like, are we gonna do? Because halfway through this episode, I'm like, are we gonna do the heist this episode? Because it seems like there's too much tension for them to do it. So obviously that's going to be an issue. Like, are they going to be able to get through this heist? Nope. We've resolved everything. Let's go forward with it. There's a few little tweaks here and there. I'm curious about what's going to happen with the alliance, but I'm sorry, with the empire. But I love this show, man. It's refreshing. It's different. The conventional effects and sets have been great. I do want a little more of a spy drama. We're getting there. We're not. You may feel it, but we're not there yet. We're not full Metal Gear type of
Oh, not
espionage yet.
yet, but like I feel like that's the tone they're going for.
Yeah, they're laying the foundation because we have plenty of episodes left. We have what, 9 episodes left? Yeah.
And I
So
am feeling it, like you said, with Mothma and with
yeah,
Skarsgård's character. That's where it's right now. But even with
yeah,
Cassian, like you're seeing him like figure out his place in that part of the world,
yeah.
and that's where I think those three kind of layers of the story work the best so far. Curious what they're gonna do with the weird rando corporate dude. Is he gonna turn into an ISB agent? I don't know.
Yeah,
The stuff
that's
with
a
the
little weird.
ISB, I'm not
Yeah.
sure how deep they're gonna go. I was hoping we'd get a Agent Callus reference or something, because he was
Okay.
the ISB agent who would be after the Rebels in Star Wars Rebels, but I
Yep.
haven't seen him yet. Not sure if we're going to see him at all, but that'd be an interesting callback. Even just a quick, passing of in the hallway kind of thing. And he, of course, becomes a rebel himself, which is a great character turn in Rebels. Loved that character. That portrayal was fantastic. But yeah, really digging it so far. I think like cinematically, it just looks so good.
Yeah.
Like holy shit, you could tell me they were gonna film this as like one like 3 hour movie, and I'd be like, this fucking stunning.
Well,
Holy shit.
I like it when they're on the hillside and the X-wing just flies around. It just feels very organic. Even though, yes, I know the X-wing's a CGI, but
You
the
mean the
way that it
TIE
makes you
fighter?
feel. Yeah, I'm sorry, the Tie
You
Fighter. I'm
should
sorry,
say
the
you,
TIE.
you called him the next week.
I Yeah, I did. I know. I did. I did. I actually said that earlier when I was watching the episode yesterday. I called it the next wing, and I'm like, what am I doing here, guys? What am I doing? Yeah, the TIE fighter. The effects are incredible though. Great effects. Like I said, the I know the pace is a little slower, but I understand why this one is different for me in we're setting up something deeper, and maybe the next 7 episodes it goes crazy after this, right? Obviously, they complete their mission, and then I think it gets hot and heavy the rest of the way through. But
Kind of has
and
to,
then we
given what we know what happens in Rebels too,
yep, yep.
because we
There's a
know
lot of
they're
drama
they're
that
they're a squad,
yep,
whereas Cassian's group's probably also going to be a squad. They're probably not all going to live either.
nope,
So the only one we know that does is Cassian
yep,
and Mon Mothma, of course.
yeah.
But yeah, speaking of Rebels, her showing up in Rebels and like giving that speech to the galaxy about how like we're not going to take the Empire's lies anymore. Just standout Star Wars moment. And if Andor can give us anything like that, it'll have been a success.
Yeah.
All right. So, anything else you want to touch on here? We're at just about
No,
an
man.
hour for recording.
No, I like the shows we're getting now. We're getting a little deeper into exploring different parts of these universes, man, and I'm really happy about that. We started the beginning of this year with Peacemaker, which was extending into the DC universe in a different direction. We're getting that with She-Hulk. We got it with Miss Marvel.
Oh,
We're
speaking of
getting it.
DC, are you going to go see Black Adam?
I've been debating it, but I'm probably gonna go see it at the Draft House.
I probably will too, because I mean, come on, it's The Rock and Pierce
Yeah,
Brosnan as Doctor Fate. Are you
Doctor
kidding
Fate.
me?
Oh, come on, man!
Could
Like,
you have cast a better character?
yeah, like when they announced it was when they announced they casted Pierce Brosnan, I remember the internet was like, "Who is he playing? What's he gonna
Because I
play?
could see
What's
him
he
as
gonna
a number of
play?"
different characters of the JSA. I could see him
Yeah.
as Alan Scott, right? I could see him as I could have seen him as Hawkman, like OG Carter Hall Hawkman.
Uh-huh.
But Aldous Hodge was a great choice too. I love that
Mhm.
guy.
I thought he was going to be the Phantom Stranger. That's what I
That
thought.
that would be a great one too.
I thought that's what he was gonna be, but when they were like Doctor Fate, I'm like, okay, yeah, like we could do a JSA type of like aged character. I'm cool with that. And then I see the picture of him holding the helmet. I'm like, I'm in. Just yeah, sign me
Yeah,
up,
it looks
man.
great. He looks
Sign me up.
fantastic.
So yeah, I don't know if you saw the cast list recently for Black Adam. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay, so apparently Amelia Harcourt is listed as cast, so she is going to be making an appearance in this movie. So yeah,
As who?
Amelia Harcourt, Jennifer Holland's character.
Oh, right, right. Oh,
For,
because we're
for
gonna see. We know we
Amanda
see
Waller.
Waller
Amanda Waller. Yeah.
in the Suicide Squad.
So yeah.
That whole component, which
So
is how they get his body.
and now there are people talking a rumor about a post-credit scene involving a certain Mr. Henry Cavill,
They're, they need to stop
and
teasing us with that shit.
they need
Just
to stop
fucking
that. Yeah.
give it to us, or
Yeah.
say it's never gonna happen.
I think the reason why they're teasing us is because they probably want people to buy tickets. That's probably
That's
why they're
true,
putting that in.
but you don't get to play those games with Henry Cavill for that long,
Yeah,
right?
I
Like
know.
that's not gonna end well if you're not gonna give him a Superman movie
Look, all I got to say is Feige's eventually going to cast him as Captain Britain because we have mutants in the
or
MCU now,
Hyperion.
or Hyperion, and it's going to be game over because the MCU is going to people are going to love what he's going to do as
Dude,
Hyperion or Captain
he's
Britain. And it's gonna be
awesome,
over.
and people are gonna love that dude. They
Yeah,
already do, and it'd be even more when he
think
was in
about
the
it.
MCU.
Hyperion is an asshole Superman, and that's really like, okay, give me Henry Cavill being
And
an
I will say,
asshole as Superman.
maybe they might not do it because they already kind of just did have asshole Superman with Icarus. Like they kind of already did that.
I wouldn't say he's an asshole. I would say he's bad and had a horrible vision for like a horrible direction, but I wouldn't say he was an asshole.
Different
Like,
kind of. I should say he was a villain, but
yeah,
not an
a
asshole.
villain is Superman. Hyperion is an asshole version of Superman, which I'm all for, and I could see Henry Cavill being that. After watching Fallout, I think he could pull it off just fine.
Yeah.
Because in Fallout, just him being kind of like the annoyed asshole when you find out he's the bad guy, that really, because I recently, like last week, I watched Fallout. I was like, oh yeah, he does villain pretty damn good, man. Like, yeah, I could see him as Hyperion. Yeah, let's do this. Fuck it. DC wants to screw around. Fuck it. Disney, sign him. Let him
And
be
speaking of screwing
Hyperion.
around, guess who's back for reshoots in The Flash? Ezra Miller.
I know. I
You
know.
kidding me? What they cannot make up their mind what the fuck they want to do with this movie.
Didn't they announce like 2 weeks ago that this was it for him as Flash? That they were going to
That
go
was the
for it in a
rumor, but
different.
then he like went. Then he realized, oh shit, they're gonna take this from me.
He
And
went to crazy rehab, right? He went to
yeah,
like, yeah.
and I
Oh
don't mean to
man.
make light of that because obviously he has some mental health issues that he really does need to
Yeah,
work on.
yeah,
But it really seems like he finally maybe sobered up and realized, oh, I need to fix this. And I don't know if they really were gonna pull it from him or if that was just a shock tactic. Because sometimes people need that,
yeah.
but I would hope they would have followed through if he didn't. So we'll see if that sticks. Hopefully he can get the help he needs and, is no longer as off the rails as he was.
Yeah. Well, and it's
And his legal trouble is not over either.
no, he's got several cases to go through. One, okay, I made I want the guy. I want that. I want them to get help. That's the reality of if they need help, get help, right? But for me, it was also hurting other people. That was a dangerous thing. Ezra
Hmm.
was playing a dangerous game and potentially putting other people in harm's way. And if that's been squashed, good. I'm glad that those people are safe now. If they're getting help, good. I wish the best. We have a movie in the can. Obviously, they're gonna push it out there and put it out there. If it doesn't do very well, he's out anyway, right? I mean, at this point, people, if it doesn't do very well in the box office, people are just it gives Warner Brothers motivation to just cut it. And Warner Brothers Discovery is looking to trim wherever they can anyway. So, um, I'm not like if they're doing reshoots, that's fine. Let them do reshoots, no big deal. If they're pushing forward with it, that's fine. If it's a good movie, I'll still enjoy it. If it's a good movie, I'm gonna watch it because I'm a big Flash fan. I just know all of the inner workings outside of it, just like what was the Olivia Wilde movie that just came out with Harry Styles and
Oh, don't worry, darling.
Lawrence? Don't worry, darling. I mean, I think people were way too focused on all of the personal and behind the scenes drama that really took place with everything, including Shia LaBeouf and all of that stuff. But I went to go see it at the Draft House. It's a good movie. It's a really, really good movie. And for me, I just want Flash to be a good movie because I'm a fan of the Flash
And if
comics.
they ruined Michael Keaton's return as Batman a second time,
Oh God, don't even get me started on that,
I
man.
mean, you already fucked
That's
over Brendan Fraser.
Yep.
You do that to Michael Keaton twice. I don't know if the internet will ever let WB forget.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's gonna be rough for Warner Brothers Discovery if this really tanks. But
Because then they get in the situation of like, okay, you clearly can't be trying to purposely tank.
no,
Because number one, regulators aren't going to like that. Number two, who's going to want to buy you? And number three, if you are successful, do you still want to sell? Like, I don't know. 2024 is going to be fucking wild.
I'm still putting it out there, man. Don't be shocked if Disney makes a run at the
That
DC
one
IP.
100% would get stopped. Because that would give them what, like 90 some percent of the comic book market share?
Yeah.
No way that gets through the FTC.
So you think you would think you're saying just because of the comic book properties being
Yeah, no way.
collectively like they would say it's a monopoly. Okay.
Because
Okay.
like that
That's
would be like Microsoft buying Sony. Technically, they
yeah.
have the money. That no way that would ever happen. Because at least as on terms of the gaming sphere, that would give them like 70+% of the market share. Because then Nintendo still, would
Yeah.
have the plurality, not the majority. But like it would give them a like together now all of a sudden Microsoft would then have the majority. Like it would be a massive like world shaking in that sphere change that would never fly regulation wise. Disney buying DC also not going to happen. Period. Not even like to entertain it. It's not. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be to buy them outright wholly as an entity. It's probably going to be Amazon.
I wouldn't have a really I would really wouldn't have a problem with that.
I wouldn't,
Um,
but they've been also buying because they've been buying a lot of stuff. Right? They just bought MGM, Lionsgate, all those. Like so it wouldn't be without precedent for them to go on an IP buying spree. And if something's on the market, if they but if you sell DC, there goes the key linchpin of selling Warner Media.
yeah.
Like that's the linchpin for their backlog catalog in terms of to a Comcast, so they can merge it with Peacock, right? Like
If yeah,
plus
if I had to
HBO.
ask
HBO's
you,
the other.
I was gonna ask you if you had to predict what the percentage of HBO Max traffic is related to DC properties, what would you say that traffic is?
I mean, not as much right now because it's
Just a
skewed with
House of
House
the
of
Dragon.
Dragon.
The
I mean,
Dragon.
because they're pulling in 30 million views a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Let's
definitely not
exclude
zero.
let's exclude House of Dragon and Game. Let's just exclude Game of
Maybe a
Thrones.
quarter
Okay. Okay.
because I mean they got
That's
a lot of their flagship stuff is on HBO Max.
mhm.
Shockingly, not going to be the fucking Bruce Timm, Kevin Conroy back as Batman show.
Yeah.
Written by him and Ed fucking Brubaker.
Yes. Ed
That's
Brubaker.
not going to be on HBO Max. What? I don't understand it. That one,
Oh,
that's the one I'm like, why?
speaking of legendary voice actors, hey man, what we predicted last episode came true, man,
Yeah,
about the
I didn't even
your
think about
likeness.
Willis. Yeah, because he's got that issue with aphasia, so he can't really like
Yeah.
perform like he used to. He just
No.
struggles to keep his focus. And he's publicly stated that a number of times that it hasn't gotten better. So people like joke about him being checked out, and it's like, well, that's kind of why. Like, he can't be as engaged as he used to be because his literal brain doesn't work right.
Well, it makes you wonder because I was listening to a podcast about the Expendables, and this was what a couple years back when he filmed that the first one he was in. So they noticed, oh, he felt like he was checked out. Maybe it's been a slowly leaking, like slowly worsening condition over the
Well,
last
that's
10
what it is.
years.
That's what it does.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean,
It's
maybe it's
not
been going
like
on a lot
dementia or
longer.
anything. It's
No,
not quite like that. It just affects how you can like process information around you.
but
And that's part of
it's
acting is you need to be able to do that.
but when we talked about James Earl Jones and his estate being able to push forward, days later, the first one that we see, the big name was Bruce Willis, because now we can do it. Now we can do a Die Hard where you digitally insert him into the movie if you really wanted to, and it's going to be a very interesting thing moving forward as a lot of these very popular action and voice stars start aging out, right? We're going to see what happens with Mark Hamill, like you said, a Batman with Conroy and Hamill doing the voices through AI, like so it'll be very interesting to see where we go because studios don't want to pay them when they don't have to, especially with points on the back end. So it'll be interesting to see how the estates negotiate this. Obviously, Willis was the first one, and he's a big box office guy, so he gets big deals. So I'm very curious what his likeness deal is like, how it's
Yeah,
structured.
that's going to be an interesting one to see as it all comes
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
All right. Well, I
Well,
think that about wraps it up here for the episode. The words episode 52 is done.
yep.
We're about an hour 10, right around our general average.
Mm,
If anyone's here in Twitch chat, hey, thanks for sticking around. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on any podcast services, we do live stream our episodes over at twitch.tv/MrWartburg. So definitely give us a follow over there so you can stay up to date when we go live and actually participate in chat when we record our episodes, especially when we do stuff that's kind of like hot off the presses, like we did last week with a trailer reaction,
yeah.
which were for the Last of Us trailer reaction, and things like that as they come up. So follow us there, of course. Subscribe, follow on any particular podcast feeds over on YouTube. Drop that like, help the algorithm, do all that kind of stuff. Assuming, of course, you enjoyed your time here watching the episode. If you didn't, also let us know because constructive criticism is never a bad thing.
Nope.
Anything else you want to add, Fusion?
No, man, just a lot of good stuff coming up here, leading into the winter time. Very happy about all the content we have. So we've got a lot of TV shows moving in motion. So we got fall kicking off. Leading into the beginning of next year, we'll get the final season of The Flash. I'm going to catch up on that at some point, and then jump in on the final season. So Andor's been fun. We're wrapping up She-Hulk. Got a lot to talk about in the next couple of months, man. And then obviously, I'm sure at some point we're going to talk about video games because we have a remaster we talked about today on For Extra Life
Oh,
that's
yeah.
coming out in a few weeks. So we're going to have to talk about Modern Warfare 2 at some point, right?
Oh, yeah. I got Overwatch that's going through some issues right now, let's say. You got
Yeah.
some other games coming out like God of War Ragnarok, the
Uh-huh.
Callisto Protocol, the Dead Space remaster.
Yep.
It's gonna be a good time.
Yes.
All right. Well, speaking of good times, let's get out of here and everybody have a good weekend. See ya.
Take care.